Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2026 Annual Conference and Book Fair in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm Michelle Morano, a member of the Board of Directors of AWP. I've been a member for the last 3 years, and in that time, I have been consistently blown away by the very small but extremely mighty staff and board that work together very closely to make AWP happen every year. So I'm very grateful to everyone for that. The Association of Writers and Writing Programs is a small but mighty nonprofit organization that amplifies the voices of writers and the academic programs and organizations that serve them, all while championing diversity and excellence in creative writing. I am a member of AWP's board, but first and foremost, I'm a member of AWP, and I have been since I attended my first conference in 2003 in New Orleans. And I was so blown away by the vibe there and the conversations, and by feeling like I was among my people that I've been coming ever since. So if you are not a member of the organization today, we definitely invite you to become one. We're delighted to bring you this event today. I'd like to acknowledge and thank Sarabande Books for today's event and their support of the conference. Our literary partners and sponsors allow AWP to present these extraordinary literary events and help us keep our conference affordable and accessible for all. I have just a few reminders before the event. Please respect the seats that are marked as reserved for attendees with accessibility needs. Please give the authors about 10 minutes after the presentation to get to the book signing table before approaching them to have your book signed. And also, please remember to silence your cell phones. Thank you. And it is now my great pleasure and honor to welcome Kristen Renee Miller, who will introduce this fantastic event.
Good afternoon, and welcome to They'll Never Write a Poem, Neurodivergent Poets on Their Writing Lives. My name is Kristen Renee Miller, Sarabande's autistic executive director and editor-in-chief, and against all odds, a poet. Last spring, our nation's health secretary held a press conference in which he platformed well-worn and long disproven misinformation and generalizations about autism. He enumerated all the things autistic kids would never grow up to do: never throw a baseball, never live independently, and yes, never write a poem. When someone says you don't and can't exist, the best and really only possible response is to be here. And to be here as much as possible. So here we are. I'm so excited to, yes, thank you. Yes, please clap for these guys. I'm so excited to introduce you to the Sarabande poets I get to share the stage with today. None of us are doctors, but we are not giving medical advice. We're not here to debate or prove the science or prove our validity. We don't need to in order to share lived experiences. We're here because neurodiversity is real and it shapes our lives, including our writing lives. This panel is sponsored by Sarabande Books, because all 4 of our Neurospicy Poet panelists are Sarabande authors. And that's not because we have a dedicated series or because we put out a special call. It's because Sarabande publishes work that is, by its nature, divergent. It's brilliant, it's clever, it has a weird sense of humor. It doesn't subscribe to the rules everyone else seems to have agreed upon. It's ahead of its time. It remains obsessively sensitive to issues, themes, connections, and styles that the world often seems to have grown numb to. It defies categorization and sometimes confounds our sales teams. It's short form for our short attention spans, and it's never, ever boring. Without further ado, in first name alphabetical order, today's poets, who will join us up here to read from their work, and after which we'll have a conversation. So first up, we'll have Alina Stefanescu. Alina was born in Romania and lives in Birmingham with her partner and several intense mammals. She is the author of the poetry collection My Heresies, as well as Ribald and Dor, which won the Wandering Aegis Press Prize. Her debut fiction collection, Every Mask I Tried On, won the Bright Horse Books Prize. Alina's poems, essays, and fiction can be found in Prairie Schooner, North American Review, World Literature Today, Pleiades, Poetry, Bomb, Crab Creek Review, and others. She serves as editor, reviewer, and critic for various journals and is currently working on a novel like Creature. And Alina is sitting second to the left from me. After Alina, we'll have Karisma Price, just to Alina's left. A native New Orleans, Karisma Price is an assistant professor of English at Tulane University. A poet and screenwriter, she's the author of I'm Always So Serious, which was a New York Times Editor's Choice pick. Her work has appeared in publications including Poetry, Indiana Review, Academy of American Poets Poem a Day series, and elsewhere. She is a 2025 Whiting Award winner in poetry, a Kovcanum Fellow, a 2023 winner of the Stanley Kunitz Memorial Prize from the American Poetry Review, and was awarded the 2020 J. Howard and Barbara M. J. Wood Prize from the Poetry Foundation. She holds an MFA in poetry from New York University. Following Karisma, we'll be joined by Lauren Haldeman, all the way to your right, my left. Lauren Haldeman is the author of the graphic novels Wild That We're Alive and Team Photograph, as well as the poetry collections Instead of Dying, Calendar, and The Eccentricity is Zero. A graduate of the Iowa Writers Workshop, she has received a Vermont Studio Center residency, Iowa Arts Fellowship, and a Sustainable Arts Foundation Award. Her work has appeared in Poetry, Tin House, The Rumpus, the Colorado Review, the Iowa Review, Fence, and others. She is currently posting her comics on Instagram, and she has a new book out. Finally, we'll be joined by Stine. Stine is the author of Summer Crush from Sarabande and the translator of Today's Morning Vocabulary by Yui Kyung. A poet, translator, and performer in New York City, her work explores diasporic poetics, experimental translation, and virtual performance. She is a 2024 NEA Translation Fellow, and her poems and translations appear in Best Literary Translations 2024, Poem a Day, Poetry Daily, Words Without Borders, and elsewhere. Please give a hand to all of our poets and welcome Alina.
Hi, am I audible to you? Great. I'm bringing my notebook because it helps me and it's sort of my companion. I'm going to read a couple of poems from My Heresies, which I left at home because I always leave my book at home when I go somewhere where I'm going to have to read it. It's just the most predictable thing. But the poems are about socialization, and they're titled after socialization. Socialization is actually the primary way in which we are educated. All of the books we read and all of the stories and all of our schooling is minuscule compared to what we learn, what the world tells us to be, how we're informed of that, how we grow into it, the codes that culture gives us in a world filled with others whom we care about, in a world that we share with others. So, for example, girls at some point early on learn that they're supposed to shave under their arms. And the reason given for that is hygiene. Now, it's not a medical hygiene that we're talking about, it's a social hygiene. And I do remember one time a teacher telling me that girls needed to shave because it was healthy and it helped prevent illness. Which I thought to myself, it's really horrible what we've done to men then, because most don't shave. So our culture must be completely against men. This is the sort of thing that I always questioned. When other people see the direction the crowd is moving in, I wonder what cliff they're going off of. Part of that is sort of happened because of my head injury that suddenly I learned what ableism was. And I think you don't see it. I was very young. You don't see it before that. You just kind of go along, and then suddenly you have no choice but to see it because you're in the position where competence is associated with your ability to follow these strange rules that humans have invented and they take for granted. So I'm going to read 2 poems about socialization. Actually, I think I'm going to read 3. Socialization as sky in the other language. Tell me about the time of the giants. My father begins with its ending, in a flood. Those who get displaced by their water lose their lineage. Purple medusas grow on the faces of children whose bodies remember surviving the waters. Your great-grandfather had a birthmark on his forehead that resembles the one on your thigh. As for the giants, they were giants. They were gigantic and generous. If a soul from the Moldovan hills needed a pot to make mamaliga, he took a step into the Hungarian neighbor's yard and filled it with water from the 9 seas. No one got angry. A giant could borrow trees from the 9 forests to heat the pot and procure kindling from ease with ease from Bulgarian neighbors. A giant is 3 steps away from anything we humans can imagine. The giants knew no nation states. Their hearts were physically bigger than mountains. Their needs were gargantuan, but had not yet found a form that demanded the destruction of others. Then who am I? My father laughs. He says the land of the giants had no word for scarcity, no noun for absence, and no individual acts. Socialization number 7, American playground game for kids. I goes to the slide and claims it for others. Mine appears. The animals with large bows, planted atop their heads by diligent mothers, coalesce into giggles. We is here. I, who is not permitted to enter the we, lies to an us by standing above such constructs, standing alone at the top of the slide like a headless bow. I becomes you who knows it. And socialization number 23. This is I wrote like 100 socialization poems. And this is just because I was studying my kids, myself, my own responses to the world. I think we don't see one another. We don't behold one another. We just have so many little boxes that we like, little cages that we like to put each other in and then study. So yeah. Socialization number 3, Family Art Museum visit. Another Pieta, a French queen, a Hollywood staple by Annie Leibovitz, a princess in velvet adorned on a chaise, a widow weeping, a glamorous starlet, another queen. In the art museum, a mind is an envelope. Each painting falls in. A child is the image's first communicant. We read the captions to ourselves. When men speak of the unborn angels, I suspect an immaculate flesh bore them privately. Everything private is mistaken for preciousness. A hernia hidden beneath the corset. All beings are born by a laboring body. Life is art's spite. The womb that gets used finds no respite. Thank you.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Okay, cool. Just making sure. I had to move the mic. I'm a little short. How y'all doing? Good. Okay. So I'm Karisma. I will be reading 3 poems, one of which comes from my collection. 2 are newer. The second collection, so I have OCD and generalized anxiety disorder. It has worsened slightly because a couple of years ago I had a really bad whiplash accident that caused injury to my back, and I went to a doctor. After a year and a half of navigating the medical system, I found out I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder. So the first poem I'll be reading talks about that. It's really, unless I break or fracture something, it's really an invisible disability, because while it's not an autoimmune disorder, it really does affect everything in my body, because everything, especially the heart, is made of connective tissue. And it really made me change the way I see others in the world. So the first, it is the ringing back. Should I, if I back up a little bit, how's this? All right. Okay. So this first one, I'm from New Orleans. So this first poem involves crawfish. It's about having a big plate of seafood with my cousin and my uncle. So it's called Castnet Seafood for Uncle Kenny and cousin Jeremy. According to the local news station, the blue crawfish is a rare thing to find. Yet it watches us from the tank of the market, spared from a boiled, seasoned death, unlike its red friends. My uncle says, joy is the opposite of running into a dagger, and I realize I am not the most poetic family member who has pain. Jay and I crack the spines of the crawfish not lucky enough to be blue. The deeper the blues, the more I see black played above my head at the chiropractor the day before. Stubborn, I call my back. Subluxation, the medical journal says. 3 times a week, my chiropractor calls the forceful moving of my misalignment a healthy crack. Like bullies hemorrhaging power, we look forward to making me almost break. I love my family, unlike my back. Before we got here, Jay threaded amber and jade and lapis into a necklace he made for me to match the cover of the book where I've written my pain. He moves outside his box, newly freed. He loves movement, says he understands that toxic masculinity means to want to pinch your claws around any smaller crustacean. I am the third most poetic in this family. He loves the neon of the crawfish. We Google what makes it blue and we suck the sadness out of our conversation. Like luck, blues can spare any life if you wear it, but it will leave you as lonely as the crawfish in the tank. I wonder what family the mud bug came from. Were they a proud bunch? Had the brightest shells in their swamp? Did this little blue bug love his looks, or did he burrow deeper into the mud because he couldn't handle the attention his hue attracted? We chew the back meat of the unlucky things, stew in the love that surrounds us like a pot with our spines and heads still attached. Look at what the brain makes the muscle do. Remember, joy is the membrane covering us, the tissue that keeps a family situated around a table when they could be running from one another. My uncle taps the murky glass to make the orphan thing move. He turns to us. Could you imagine us living like that? All hard on the outside with an exoskeleton? No, I can't. There's so much in us, we'd fall apart. Okay. So, let's see. Yeah, you can clap, it's fine. Make me feel famous. Poets, we got like 3 fans each, it's fine. Okay, so this next poem, if you are like me and possibly on an SSRI, anybody? Woo! Medication. Okay. So, yeah. So when I first started anti-anxiety medicine, it made me have very weird dreams. I still have weird dreams. But one of those that was very, very memorable, so much so that I wrote a poem about it. I was up next for a workshop, and then the end of the world just decided to happen in the dream. But I mean, real life is getting like that too. It's scary out here. So this is called Poem at the End of the World, or Last Week's Dream. We sit here eating his depression cupcakes instead of the small slices of tiramisu and pomegranate he promised us. But it is okay. Our professor is dying, as are the rest of us, and he doesn't want us to die hungry, so the moment is still beautiful. The end of the world extends a broken arm to our building. Gus gets up and shuts the blinds. The classroom window coats with the color we cannot see, or we pretend not to, or maybe it's just me. I sit with my back to the window on the 12th floor. The brackish water is rising and brown pelicans are choking on the heads of bass. Everything I love stands with death at its heels, so let me just tell you the truth. I am bitter. I do not get to leave at the hands of a sickness I thought would take me first. Asthma, anxiety, OCD, an infection of the finger that will result from my OCD because I wash my hands so much they raw and bleed. I did not undercook the chicken or die from salmonella. I did not get arrested for doing something exceptionally black, like voting for a black woman who scares Republicans shitless, so my afro has been a waste. Pretend I still have an afro. There has never been a gas leak in the apartment, and I restocked the toilet paper because there is a possibility I may come back as a ghost, and my ghost self may have the same stomach issues as my flesh self. I sit back with my back to the window, and I still remember the name of my childhood best friend. I sit with my back to the window and our professor asks if he did a good job making dessert. His eyes red from exhaustion or fear or guilt. Most definitely fear. You should make this again. I sit with my back to the window and watch Gus's little girl. No one else has brought family. Laughing. A pimple of brown frosting on the tip of her nose. Gus, who married a woman with hair as thick as his own, parts her hair for the last time. We pray the comb won't break. And this is my last one. It's you can't see it. It's written with a whole bunch of spaces. So, as I mentioned, I have OCD. So this is one where I actually, for the first time, I'm a Cave Canem fellow, and I wrote this. They make you write a poem every day in workshop, which is terrifying. So give me 1 second. All right. So this is called I'm Just Ashy, or Meditations on OCD. The masseuse recommends I test my water for metallics. Needs me to lotion slick shine between feet, fingers, interdigital folds, the birth name of valley skin. Science names the rough between white spaces xerosis. I'm black, so I'm just ashy. In white spaces, the soft parts of me are the roughest, whitest, tilled, broken soil, overwatered. I am here to rub the wrinkles from my back. Shiny metals in the liquid. What should I call my hands when they plunge and break under the breakage of water? For the 10th time, same soap, my mind bathes in the wrong applause, hunger a hand needing its mirror to drown. Most days I am too tired to be a poet. No surprise. I'm just the rough space in between wanting to love you, but not knowing the difference between prayer and capture. It's all in the head. You thief. You thief. Reflection echoes a gulfing drain, orchestrator of sick science, alabaster manifestation. My masseuse doesn't know I also need to knock my head when water or wood is absent from space around my body. I still knock my head. Convicted woodpecker, bone bark, although I learned that is how you say thumb in sign language. OCD, rumination, fugitive invocation of the body. You are the cult leader trapping with the promise of freedom. Assure me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lauren. There we go. Put the timer on. I didn't. Neurodivergent is a new word to me. We didn't have that word when I was a kid. And several years ago, my now teenager said to me, kind of snarkily, like, "You should look up the word neurodivergent, Mom." And I appreciated it because she led me to this. I mean, I looked it up and everything pointed to sort of me. And that's both like frightening and a really a really nice thing to feel too. So I'm going to show you some images from my latest book. It's poetry comics that I've been posting since the pandemic. And like the question of like, they'll never write a poem, like, it's so weird because it's like, how could we not? Like, I feel like most of the poets I know are neurodivergent, and I use poetry as one of my coping mechanisms. So here's a couple about sensory issues, which again, newly learning about this. I went to the woods because there were no barcodes there. Like, barcodes are so gross. I don't like to see them. I don't like to touch them. Like, I see one on a shelf, I'll turn it around. The other thing is like stickers. Like, I can't eat if I can see a sticker because I think the sticker is going to get in my mouth. So if anyone else has those, let me know. The sticker one, I feel gross even talking about it. I do this thing with my fingers and I don't know why. What is it? It helps calm me down. So I've been doing this since I was a kid. I haven't really met anyone else who does it. People ask me about it. It looks weird. I think that it might be, what's the name?
Stimming.
Stimming. Yes. And also learned that from my kid. Oh my God, why do I feel insane? Turns off the oven fan. Okay, cool. Yeah. Why is the sun so loud today? Me to my sweatpants when I leave in the morning. Wait for me, I'll be back. I promise. Like a lover. Whenever my parents made me wear a dress as a kid, I hated it. I'd always secretly wear soccer shorts underneath to feel normal. Definitely lots of sensitivities around fabric. Cannot wear dresses. Always felt like a boy. And yeah, I have like 7 of these shirts, like 4 of these. I find what feels right and then I buy a ton of them. It's a hug you put on. So like a really good, when you find that piece that fits, it doesn't like choke you. It's not itchy. Perfect. Have you ever had to triangulate the source of an itch? Like this happens to me all the time. Like it feels like it itches here, but really I have to scratch here. All right, OCD. I too enjoy the adventure of OCD. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. Me drawing every one of these comics. Had to get over very quickly that if I messed up a line, someone I loved would die, to be able to do this at all. My generalized anxiety disorder, loved Reader's Digest as a kid. So does anyone remember Reader's Digest? All right, cool. So we're just going to go through a couple of these. Playground tragedy. All of Reader's Digest was just this to me. Poison in a pill bottle. Your grandparents' gas stove might explode. Is your grandmother against you? The worst food poisoning killed them. The worst food poisoning, don't eat chicken salad. When a mom turns evil, like nail gun in the heart was a real one. And Reader's Digest, a guy shot a nail gun into his heart, had to take himself to the hospital. Is the devil inside you? A bad babysitter's to watch out for. The ghost in your room. Botulism. I am so obsessed with botulism, you guys. If anyone thinks they have it, I can help. Tylenol is dangerous. We're all going to die. And then make sure you count each step and the total is divisible by 4, 5, or 11. Those are my numbers, 4, 5, or 11. I know we all probably have different ones, but those are mine. I think the fear of losing my mind is making me lose my mind. OCD examples. I always say see you and never goodbye because see you is a promise not to die and goodbye isn't. It's misspelled here. And so I won't. I'll never say goodbye because I was watching this TV show. Maybe I was like 9 years old. It was about a girl who got kidnapped and they had her picture on the screen. And then they played the last voicemail she left on her mom's phone. And at the end, she goes, okay, Mom, goodbye. And then they made it echo, goodbye, goodbye. And then her picture faded to black. And I saw that and I was like, never. I will never say goodbye. And to this day, I just say, see you. Do you guys add up the digits of your hotel room to make sure it's a safe number or do you just risk it? So we're in 609, and it's okay. 6 makes me a little nervous, but 6 plus 9 is 15. And again, 5 is 4, so we're good. But I'll do the math multiple times, and yeah, I won't stay in a 13. There's no way. Whenever I have to clean up broken glass, I get the distinct feeling that the tiniest shards of glass are entering my body and actively infecting me with a glass virus made of even more glass. Me in a lot of pain, also me worried that I'm making the pain up. Does anyone else? Okay. Can plants grow inside of humans? Don't tell me. I don't want to know. This is one of those thoughts, an intrusive thought, basically, that comes into my head, and then I will think it into oblivion, and it will completely derail me from the rest of the day or the week. And I hope plants don't grow inside of humans. Just normal thoughts. It's so nuts that I'm still this same person right now with this same body and these same memories and not dead yet. I like it when a cloud line mirrors a tree line. It seems like a really good sign. So seeing patterns. After a therapy session, what are you thinking about? Oh, me, nothing. Spring is a mess, and so am I. I drew this right before kind of having like a massive mental breakdown. I'm going to show you a couple sheets of the notebook I was keeping during this breakdown, which ended up in a couple psych ward stays. I brought this into my psychiatrist. I was like, can you help me with this? Time is just a changing of forms. There's no self to die. The self is just a software program our minds run in order to understand sensory input. You are inside a being. There are no boundaries. You are being and you are held by being. I'm like trying to explain this to my psychiatrist. I'm like, okay, so I think what it is, this is existentialism, OCD. There's a void. Things don't, they manifest in consciousness at the moment that the consciousness, he was like, we're going to put you on 80 milligrams of Prozac. And then I don't know if I have ADHD, but how to start a, I enjoy the soaking method of washing dishes. Sometimes there's nothing good in the mailbox, I just leave it in there. I mean, what? Like, who else is going to get it? Me trying to pretend that chores are a video game, one of many hacks that I have to get through life. As a kid, I talked too much in class. My teacher moved me to an empty corner, so I started talking to the pencil sharpener there. He had a lovely family. And how was your weekend? Oh, back there you can see room 401. 4 plus 1 is 5. 4 is a good one. 5. So I think about that with numbers in any way. I love myself, but I don't love me back. So I think the main purpose of getting up here and my main purpose of drawing these and my main purpose of writing poetry and then showing them to people is because the more that I find out that I'm not alone in this world that I live in, the less I hate myself, I guess. Or what am I trying to say? I'm trying to learn to love myself. And the more people that I meet that say, hey, this happens to me too, or I feel this way too, the more I'm able to love myself. And also wondering if you guys think I should get this as a tattoo. All right, cool. And then my last one is one that I drew for Kristen a couple years ago that you came up with. Sometimes I wonder if the ghost in my room is just me coming back from the dead to say hi. So we both see ghosts. We wake up and see ghosts. I also talk in my sleep, which I'm so sorry to my roommate. I did that last night, and I apologize. But that is the end of my presentation, and this is my Instagram. All right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stine. During the pandemic in my early 30s, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and I was inspired by my friend from grad school who's in the audience right now because they use their time in grad school to get diagnosed with ADHD, and they told me how it was amazing that they could finally get the support that they needed and that it helped them understand their mind. And that really inspired me to pursue a diagnosis. And it's still been a process. And one thing about me is I actually have a younger brother who was diagnosed with autism at a very young age. And so when I was growing up, my brother was the one who there was like this pressure to be extra normative because my brother received this diagnosis. And in this immigrant community that I grew up with, like people didn't really understand autism. And but anyways, I want to share with you some excerpts from a poetry collection that's coming out later this year with Night Boat Books. It'll be my debut poetry collection called Be Dragon Sweet. And it didn't really, it's not a project that would have been possible had I not started accepting just kind of how I experience the world through different languages and also through images and sound. For some context, in the book, there is a shadow K-pop boy group called Little Bang and also a girl group called the Pink Blossoms. Meet the cast of Little Bang, your favorite soft power ethno-nationalist global sensation pop boy band. Dramatis personae. B Dragon Pyong, leader, main rapper, and vocalist, nickname BD. A shadow dragon from the gutter, a shade hell-bent on dragging through the motherfucking ocean to the underworld with a catabasis cranked to the masses, always plays on the B side, minoritarian or just minor. In a mirror world, a K-pop flower boy, whatever, a jawline to cut deep into the sky with swagger. LAST, Reste, lead rapper, vocalist, and visual, nickname Dead Last. A turtle, a dragon, a turtle dragon, a ship and drag as a turtle dragon. Identity schmidentity. This is an armored war vehicle built to last and last and last, to survive this neo-colonial calling and the next new hot thing, to outride all the explosions, big and little and middling. A permanent Sean scowl, best suited for a bumpy life. Dalim, Talim, main vocalist and main dancer, nickname Dalinen Danim, or Dear Daughter. The dear honorable moon, part of a sibling duo tiger chased into the heavens and fatally transformed. Coordinated celestial performers via folklore, brother or sister, no one remembers. Blessed, dances and sings like there is no sorrow, fashionably late or just a bit slow, to the latest song and dance of the hegemony. So-sung, So-sung, lead vocalist, nickname Little Voice. A twinkling mouse of a voice made audible through amplification, without a microphone and the greater sound system, just some wind whistling, a needle picking at a record, a whisper in a nightmare, wishes to retire one day from performance, practices singing meanwhile, singing with one's own little throat. Failbe, Pepe, lead dancer, vocalist, and Magne the Greenest, nickname Champ. What is the opposite of success? A cruel anti-joke about fruit. The ultimate bumbler who fails at failing better, only down and across, pulps victories into pear-shaped losses, recognizes success as failure, failure as reality, but at the end of the day, no one is as loyal, as wholly devoted, as assiduous, as juicy. B list. B equals B. B equals flat. Flat as in flat. B as in blue. B as in twee. B as in failure. B as in not quite. B as in B. B as in busy. B equals P. Peenin P. P as in rainy umbrella emoji. P as in anti. P as in not. P as in tombstone. P as in spend. P as in measure. P as in critique. P as in divide. P as in maintain. P as in bitch. P as in queen, P as in flight, P as in low, P as in sad, P as in whole, P as in root, P as in unknown, P as in to be continued, P as in begin. Sound exercise for B Dragon. B Dragon equals Pyong. Pyong as in cost. Pyong as in pyong pyong, like the sound of toy laser guns, toy sirens, and toy air horns. Byung, as in byung kada, like the sound of falling for something, suddenly, madly, deeply, a celebrity crush or an ideology, like the sound of a tiny bang from an ant gun. 뿅, as in 뿅망치, as in a toy hammer, as in a squeaky hammer, as in a crude, blunt gag implement for hitting someone on the head for humorous effect. Home equals gutter. Bee dragon dreams of home. Home is a gutter. Before we translate the Korean idiom 개천에서 용난다 into English, home is but a fill in the blank. From A/the A/the dragon, B. From A/the brook, stream, creek, channel, gutter, sewer, trench, conduit, spout, valley, furrow, ditch. Place of water makes a run for it. Place water takes a piss. Place water makes way. A/the dragon is born, is grown, is sprouted, is manufactured, is printed, opens, takes flight, occurs, happens, hatches, becomes an idiom, becomes known via rumor, becomes a product of, becomes a rags to riches story, rises above. To and for bee dragon, home is an idiom. Footnote, insert an abridged version of your family's immigrant narrative here. And this is the final one. This is the pink blossoms, and I oftentimes feel like I don't have a voice in my poetry, and one of my mentors has told me that I have a stance. And so for me, I kind of tend to see the page as a space for performance. And it also made one thing that has made me think about neurodivergence is this idea of masking. And that's something I've been exploring a lot in my work. Meet the pink blossoms, your favorite provincialist, soft flower, nostalgia, local anti-pop girl band. Dramatis Flores. Peach Blossom. Lead vocalist, rapper, dancer, and visual, nickname Pink One. Apricot Blossom, Pink Two. Lead rapper, vocalist, dancer, and visual, nickname Pink Tone. Baby Azalea, Pink Cyril. Lead dancer, rapper, vocalist, and Magne, the greenest, nickname Pink Thrill. Rose of Sharon, Pink Sa. Leader, main visual, Reaper, vocalist, dancer, and peninsular almost psychopomp, nickname Pink Death, aka Hibiscus, aka Flower of the Field and an Inexhaustible Abundance, aka Korean Rose. The reader, Pinku O, main reader, dancer, vocalist, and present, nickname Pick Your Appellation Here. We are many, so many. Flattened and forgotten between the perennial pages of history, we are iridescent. Our true hues cannot be replicated here, where we appear as five-petaled pink hibiscus flowers, generic, oneric. The pink flower stands in for something that cannot be replicated. Together, we miss our former, present, and future selves. Do we ever exist at all outside of an ethno-national unconscious? Did we ever hold us? Did we ever meet in the springtime of our hometown? We sing ourselves into being, we sing ourselves into choir. We're always dancing in our hearts. We follow Pincus Ha Hibiscus Syriacus, the leader of this rosary, into the dark, into the light, into our luminous final resting place and home under earth. We vow to never return, to dive into the underworld, to remain there forever and ever. Thank you.
Are we on? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Please give these guys another hand. Aren't they so brilliant? Thank you. That was so gorgeous and hilarious and exactly as good as I knew it would be from you guys. Oh, it's ringing. Thanks for putting up with it. Yes, you all were so lovely to share, and to trust us and to trust this room with details about your personal lives. We have represented here today many flavors of neurodivergence, as well as many of the common co-occurring traits and disabilities and abilities. And so thank you. Thank you for sharing a little bit about that before you read to ground our conversation. So our jumping off point is the current U.S. Health Secretary's remark that an autistic person will never write a poem. And Lauren, I think you asked the crucial question and, the only real question that can be asked, which is how can a neurodivergent person not be a poet? which incidentally is the title of next year's panel.
Yeah.
I think we all agree that, in fact, poetry can be an especially good match for a neurodivergent brain. Can you talk about, and we'll just start with Lauren and go down, can you talk about what poetry makes possible for you, poetry or comics, poetry or hybrid, makes possible for you that other forms of writing or communication don't?
I mean, I think because so many neurodivergent people are poets, I've met some of the best friends I've ever made in my entire life because I wrote poetry and they wrote poetry and we met through that. So that, I mean, would be number one, because it can be a lonely world. But I also like how a poem gives me like a puzzle or a task. My brain's just like that drawing. It's just always running, and it runs to really bad places if it doesn't have a task. And I feel like a poem is it's like that play toy you can give to a dog where they just like, you freeze it and then they lick it for like an hour or whatever. That's like a poem to me, to my brain.
It's beautiful.
Okay.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, for me, I get to be really tangential in poetry because when I have a conversation, sometimes I go on these long tangents. And I remember in English class, my teacher would read my essays and be like, "Yeah, you have too many run-on sentences. You need to like split them up." I'm like, "No, it's still going." And I was talking to some of my fiction friends. I'm I'm writing a novel right now, which is very hard, obviously, but also every time I look at the page number, I'm like, this could be 3 poetry books. Why do I need to expand it? But what I find is sometimes when I'm writing prose, I have to be more formulaic as opposed to poetry, which is more about exploration. As a poet, we're taught not to outline poems as opposed to other genres where we have to outline it a little bit to before we go into writing the piece. And for me, poetry, you get to end on questions and create a question. You don't have to answer it. So for me, it's like a check-in, but also a questioning and maybe creating more mess. But the mess is good.
I was trying to think of a good example for this, and the easiest one I could is to say that what neurotypical people do really well is lockstep. And where neurodivergence really shows up is in the incapacity to sort of follow this automatic thing that's happening. And there's a poetic side to this. Actually, there's a formal side to this. Because it's something that fascinates me, back in the ancient, I hear myself ringing, the elegiac meter was hexameter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 per each line. A perfect march, perfect for the epic, perfect for any war you want to get people, any carnage you want, you just line it up in that hexameter. And Ovid was like, well, what if it limps a little? And so he created this sort of elegiac meter developed this erotic Latin couplet that has the hexameter, and the next line is a pentameter. So you have it moving. Something is lost. You limp a little, just like Eurydice, gets bitten by the snake, and she limps after that. Of course, she goes to the inferno and dies. But that's also a great story, a great poem. I love thinking of the poem as a body that is allowed to make these spaces to limp. If that offends someone, a limping body, I don't care. I have absolutely, that is the page is the space where I don't have to see their faces. I don't have to worry if I'm insulting someone. I can just let it be beautiful. I can let it be erotic. I can speak to the sensuality. There's so much, I heard so many of my senses were engaged by my peers' readings, about what they feel, how they feel the world. And I think that gets left out a lot when we talk about, neurodivergence. You get left out about how you experience that sweater, the incredible intensity of touch. And I think poems do that. They let us touch. They let us, limp. They let us be in bodies differently, in less disciplined or hygienic bodies.
So much of what people have said resonate with me. So I used to write prose and fiction, but I really couldn't figure out how to write like a short story, or I was writing pieces that were really weird and short. And then it wasn't until someone introduced me to poetry, I was like, oh, maybe I'm writing poems. And they were like, we don't even care if this is a poem. You can just kind of write what you want. And I feel like poetry is one of those spaces where I can kind of be with my experiences and be embodied in those experiences and not worry whether a reader might fully make sense of it. I do feel that one of the I also translate, and one of the poets I translate, he mentioned that for him, poetry is one of the few spaces where you can encounter the other, and there's space for not knowing. The point isn't to fully understand everything. And I feel so lucky to have poetry in my life because it's one of the only spaces where I can truly have this like bodily autonomy over my experiences, and also be like, this is also one way to be or experience this thing. And I feel like that's where, at least I feel that with neurodivergence, I've been really kind of grappling with what is the normative or the non-normative, and what do you lose by not allowing space for non-normativity.
Thank you all for those answers. I feel smarter already. I wonder if we can talk about joy. Autistic joy, neurodivergent joy is a full body experience. I remember before I was diagnosed, before I knew I was autistic and ADHD, I used different words than the right words to describe my experiences. I was talking about the first time I began translating and the way it felt like it flipped on all the switches in my brain at once. Can you guys speak to what lights you up about your writing practice? What lights you up about your writing? And I'll let you popcorn it so we don't go in the same order each time.
How are we going to popcorn though?
No. We can go in order. Lauren, would you like to start?
I'll go. Okay. But I'm just going to share a story I grew up in Virginia and I moved out to Iowa City to become a writer, basically. I was like 18. And when you move to a new place and you're like, I'm going to tell everyone who I am, like I'm going to make my own story. And I had been telling friends this story about my younger brother who had been diagnosed with ADHD, and how in school he moved too much and bounced up and down and jumped up and down. And that his teacher had taught him when he felt that energy in his body that he should just clap. And I told everyone at school this story, and then I brought a couple friends back to Virginia and we were having dinner and I told the story again. And my mom turned to me and was like, that was you, Lauren. And I was like, what? And I had remembered the story as happening to my brother, but it happened to me. And I was the one that the teacher made do small claps. And that's, when you said joy, that's what I think of. Like, my joy is hard to contain in my body. My joy is big in the same, because my anxiety is big, because all my feelings are big. And so that's been something that I've learned through drawing and writing, as to like, there are other ways than jumping up and down and screaming, Lauren, to get that joyful feeling out. I'll just say one thing, my favorite sounds. So recently we got this paper cutter in our office, and its name is Carl. And and Carl, it says it right there, Carl. And Carl's like, God, the joy of saying Carl, like I'm getting chills. Like I love I love like a K. I love the R. I like the or, and Carl. So I mean, that's like a joy that's hard to explain, except to people like us, right? So okay, you.
That's a really big question. I feel like so the joy that I have, for me, poetry is a big check-in with myself. It's like a call and response to myself, and I get to be as nosy and messy as I want, because I'm like, I don't have to share it with anyone, but I might. So I'm very type A. I was one of those overachievers in school. So I would always have to be like, okay, I have to do this. I have to do this in a certain order. OCD, now that makes sense. But when I'm writing, I feel like there's nothing else I'm supposed to be doing. It relaxes my mind in that way. For me, I feel like joy, I'm such a homebody. I love it when someone cancels plans and I get to lay down. Oh, yeah. It's like, oh, you don't have, no, that's fine. I just lay down. Like yesterday, I challenged myself. I was like, I came from the airport and I was like, I'm just going to go to the hotel, lay down, watch TV. And then someone invited me to a birthday party. I'm like, you know what? You go sing karaoke and eat Korean chicken. Yeah, and I did. It was great. It was great. But and I sung End of the Road by Boyz II Men. Yes. Yes. So for me, like Carl, that cut, when you're like wrapping a Christmas present and like when you cut into the wrapping paper and the scissors move so smoothly. Good feel. So the joy is just checking in on myself and not having it. Poetry is like a public diary. Like you can write what you want, with ethics, with morals, but I'm not worried in the moment when I'm writing of how others will feel because I need to let it out. Like to feel seen or to be seen is like seeing yourself and check in with yourself.
Yeah, the not worrying about other people like just really resonates and tracks for me because I think so a good way to describe it when I experience happiness is it's kind of Bjorkian. It's kind of violently happy. It's just not really a tame happiness. It's not like appropriate, I guess you could say. And you learn over time how to try and control that. Like, for example, I gave myself permission today to bring my notebook because when I go to a symphony or a concert or even a movie, my husband would be like, why do you always bring your notebook? And I'm like, because there's so much. I feel so much. I've got to write it down. If not, I'm going to talk. And so, there's all this. I need somewhere to put it. And I feel like I'm losing something if I don't get to because I want to think about it later. And why do I have to not do that just so that everyone around me is comfortable, right? So that's, I guess, you could call there's these weird little ways in my life in which I've discovered things that allow me to take poetry with me, to tap my happiness that isn't in the same way, or that doesn't resemble other people's happiness. But also, there's, in on the page, the bird can talk to me. And say I'm sitting under a tree, which is often and so many times in life, where there's what I hear what the bird's saying better than I understand what this world is saying. Better than I understand why we do the things we do, why we justify them, how we rationalize them. When I was little, I used to think that smiles were actually like things people taped up because people smiled so much. And so I thought they were lies. And my mom was like, she's like, Alina, why don't you smile more? And I said, because people lie when they smile. They smile, but then they're like secretly, their eyes are like, gonna kill you, and that's maybe growing up in the South. But I had I didn't associate smiling with happiness. I associated it with like force, with cruelty, and so I had to like learn, to not think of the smile that way. And then I had a daughter who didn't smile. And I found myself saying to her, Micah, why don't you smile more? Because people get the wrong impression about the way you are. You're such a happy person. People think. And she was like, because smiles are lies. So I'm like, there we go. That's the poet too. Like, why do we have these ways of like seeing when the signification of a smile, right? We're talking about what it means in the world. What are the different ways? Birds have this little up curve to their tail when they're just twitching that I love. That to me is like a little smile in the air, a wink. I think of the semicolon as a wink. I love punctuation. I think of there's commas have been so many things to me. All of these sounds, you guys mentioned sounds. I mean, sometimes just a beautiful sound makes my day and I can hear it everywhere. Sometimes when people use assonance, I'll sit there and stare at a poem I've read and I'm just like, I can't believe this person did this. Is amazing. It brings me joy. It makes me feel less alone in the world, but it also creates the world that I want to live in. So we create as we, read, the poetry is just all that stuff.
I'm being reminded when I was getting tested or evaluated to receive a ADHD diagnosis, there's one test that tests your impulse control. And I remember the psychologist saying like, oh, you're actually pretty good at impulse control, which kind of made me wonder like how much I had been say kind of suppressing myself and how exhausting that must have been for so much of my life. And I do think poetry is one of the few spaces where I don't necessarily have to exercise this like impulse control or worry about being weird. Like, am I making sense grammatically? And for me, as someone who was born in South Korea, came here when I was like 2 years old, so much of my experience has been about performing language in a certain way to fit in or to show or prove myself. That, yeah, poetry is this one space where I can truly be free and also kind of be free from a sense of self, because sometimes when I write poetry, it feels like I'm channeling, and it's a way of getting at different parts of myself that I normally wouldn't get to feel or experience.
Thank you. We'll start with Stine and come this way on this one. We've talked about various kinds of accommodations we've made for ourselves or we've accepted. So sorry about this ringing. What are things that you do to enable your writing practice? What are, give us your best hack. This is a room full of people that love hacks. I just know it. What's when we were talking earlier, somebody said the 3-drink thing, which yes, absolutely. Yes, Karisma. What are some things that you do to accommodate yourself outside of the kind of the ones we know, the medication, yeah.
Well, it really helps when I remember to take my medication. Like when I remember, like, yes, I can take this. Sometimes I have trouble. Sometimes I'll try to control how long I need to exist for. So sometimes if I can't sit down for 30 minutes, I'll just be like, okay, can I sit down for 5 minutes? And so I'll set a timer for 5 minutes, and I'll see how, if I see myself, because I feel like 5 minutes is doable to finish a task. And then I gradually will kind of increase the increment to like 5. Okay, I can do this for 5 minutes. Can I do this for 10 minutes, 15 minutes? And that's been helpful, just kind of controlling how the amount of time I need to be present for, and then just kind of repeating that.
I learn a lot from other neurodivergent people. I learned a lot when my son was little, and he is autistic, and I was sort of learning that whole world. He's 23 now, so it's a long time ago. But it was my introduction to, all I remember realizing was how angry I was at the world that made it so hard for this sweet little human to just, be himself. And I'm still ferocious in defending his way of being in the world. And I've had to learn how to if not defend, I have a harder time doing that for myself. So it's like the opposite of what you're supposed to do. I'm going to put the mask on the person next to me on the plane, and then later I'm going to be like, well, sorry self, So I think one of the things I've done is actually textual. I mentioned this, right? This is very helpful to me to just write when I want, bring my notebook, take notes about things that interest me, and not pretend like that's not a valid thing to do. Another is in my actual practice of poetry. And that is to give myself B-sides, because I'm such a perfectionist about everything and so self-critical that I'll have the poem and then the B-side. And then that actually happened in my heresies, because the prefatory poem is called Byline Be Sky. It's a classic like lyric shape. It's invocative. It's doing all the things a lyric poem does. I'm performing with my lyre in that first poem. And then there's a poem towards the end that's called Sky B-sides. And that's a poem where Medusa's talking, and all of the snakes that are rising from her head, she's like, look, they talk, and believe them. And they're just, it's much more choppy. It's not lyrical in the same way that syntax and the fragmentation. Inhabiting that is good for me. I even mentioned, one of the name of the brain scarring off on my frontal lobe from my head injury. Like the technical name of that, the ambulance chasers still come after me for every time I get an MRI, which is insane. Like 35 years later. But that is where I bring that up. So I have a space where I let myself perform in these different costumes. And for me, that it feels more real than having to be asked to live in one. So maybe it's because like I was born somewhere else in another country too, and I have these two. There's no way to reconcile them completely. Like it's, you know, there are these just different masks. So I don't know if that's helpful, but.
For me, that's a really hard question because I don't think I need to be kinder to my writing side. A part of me, sometimes, so I know comfortability wise, see, I put on a very nice outfit today because I do comfort over fashion any day. And I like that it's all pink, but I have to be wearing something very comfortable texture wise. For me, on a really good day, like I want to like distinguish like the difference between a relaxing like home life versus work. And with the pandemic, it's really fused it all together. So sometimes I like to go to a coffee shop or some type of space. And I miss third spaces, like these liminal spaces. You know, people don't, well, people go to the mall, but that third space where you can just be weird. So I try to go to coffee shops where it's like the right amount of like background chatter. And so I can focus and tune in, but sometimes, and I guess this is just like an odd thing that I do, sometimes I will try to start in the notebook because I'm always worried about like, what if someone's behind me reading my screen? It's like, what is she doing? And it's like, mind your business. So sometimes I do that. And when I always try to find the perfect place to write, but then I always just end up writing at night in my bed because everyone else is asleep. The world does not expect anything from me. So I think for me, I like to write in silences where nothing is expected. Everything's off with me. The OCD is like the doors are locked, the stoves are off. All I need is me and my 3 liquids, which I love to keep a water, a Sprite, and like a boba tea. Love that for me. But sometimes mirroring helps. Maurice, wave to the people. That man in the back dressed like the Mighty Quinn. Hey, that's Maurice. What happens I shout you out to stay. That's my friend. We have the same birthday, September 20th. Sometimes we'll get on Zoom. Mirroring helps when someone else is working, whether it's in person or on Zoom. I find that very helpful because I have no problem disappointing myself, but if it's like an external deadline, which is why school was great for me. I was like, oh, I can't disappoint my teacher. I have to turn this in and this in. So I feel like for me, writing with people to have that sense of community, but also like that person is working, you need to be working too. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of ridiculous that, we're writers, but we're also assigned with the task of being our own administrators and our own marketers and our own social media managers. And I'm not good at any of those. And so I basically came up with a way to make myself do those jobs a little bit better, especially when I was starting to send work out, books out. When you send work to like one magazine, it has like their guidelines are like totally different from another magazine's guidelines. And like both of them are like, do not screw this up. And so I do 2 things. I use annoyance and I gamify. So I know what annoys me, and so if something needs to get done, I will purposely make it annoy me. Does that make sense? So like if mail needs to be gone through or checks need to be why are we even doing checks anymore? Like even when I need money, like I can't cash the check. It's so hard. I will put it in a really annoying spot visually in my area. And that thing will annoy me until I take care of it. And maybe that's not the kindest thing, but it forces me to do it. And then also I've used this app called Habitica that gamifies everything. And so I have tasks that I can do to earn points to get prizes. So if I do the dishes and put them away, I get 5 points and I can spend 5 points to spend 20 minutes on TikTok. And then so I will time myself on TikTok. So I use a timer a lot too. Like, and this is, my husband's like this doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm like, you don't make sense to me. Like, why? Like, you don't, why do you do anything? And he's like, you have to do things. And I'm like, yeah, but what's the prize? So,
Gamifying is so real. And also, I think, Stine, you're the first person to say this to me maybe a year or more ago where I really heard it, which is to do things on easy mode. And I didn't realize until you said that I immediately assume everything is going to be on hard mode, or if it's not, I make it hard mode. And challenging myself to do the fastest, easiest, dumbest version of something, and then it comes out great because our standards are too high anyway, right? It comes out just fine. That's probably my best
that
bet.
also that brought me to giving myself permission to do things on easy mode. Not everything has to be on hard mode. And then something else that really helped me is rather than trying to be like an A student, being like a C student. I think the idea is that you try to figure out what you need to get out of something. And if something feels like maybe like 70 or 80% done, that's it. That's good. And that by just doing more, you end up gaining more experiences over a longer period of time. And it's for you rather than trying to meet someone else's like standard of what an A is. And that kind of helped me too. But you don't have to get a star all the time.
Someone else's standard who doesn't exist and isn't watching.
Yeah. But also that easy mode thing that really helped me. Yeah.
Definitely. You guys, we probably have time for each of you to talk one more time. And there's so much I wanted to ask you about. I wanted to talk about intersectionality because none of us get to be neurodivergent in a vacuum. I wanted to ask you about what your rest looks like in your writing practice. I wanted to ask you if you also feel the need to like de-weird your stuff before you put it on the market. But I also, want to, if you brought more that you want to say that you haven't gotten to talk about yet, give you a chance to do that, and we'll just go down the line again. Feel free to speak to any of those things.
I just want to say I'm so thankful for my kid's 15 and that generation. They have made these words and as well as words about gender and about all of these things much more well. They brought them into life basically, and like the relief I feel having and they really push them. They're insistent about pushing them, and so I get yelled at a lot as a mom for messing stuff up, but I so appreciate having these words now. It's probably like worth like 5 or 6 years of therapy, or 6 or 7.
6, 7.
I got that one.
For me, I guess intersectionality with neurodivergence and race. So my book is called "I'm Always So Serious" because people have told me I have a resting B face, and it's just like, well, first of all, my mouth hurts. I got braces now. But I really, growing up, I had really bad TMJ. So it's just like, why do you always look so serious? And it's like, well, sometimes I do see happiness as being performative. Not always, but sometimes. So it's just like, sometimes I am my most calm when I'm just looking like this. And people are like, why are you mad? I'm like, I am just existing. And I feel like particularly, Black people and especially Black women, like we always get this stereotype thrown about us. It's like, oh, she has a bad attitude. I'm like, what if I'm just shy? I was very shy as a child. So before I got the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome diagnosis, but when I wrote this book, I knew I had OCD and generalized anxiety. So part of me was just like, how does the body feel safe versus unsafe? How do you socialize? And particularly Black people, we socialize a lot without words. It's with facial expressions. We talk with our hands. We do little things like things like that. And I feel like that's a language within itself. And I feel like for me, learning more about myself, how my brain works, how my body feels safe versus like random aches and pains, which I know now is my connective tissue disorder. I do feel like sometimes when we see certain groups of people with neurodivergence or any type of disability, we give them much more grace than we do people of color.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about that last statement that you made because I think it's true. For me, the normal is authoritative. And I think whenever I hear people use the word normal as aspirational, or when they chastise someone for not being normal, something in me bristles a little. And when I was younger, I would take that bristle and punish myself with it for thinking about it. And I think in poetry and in art, and one of the greatest reliefs for me has been to take, for example, my love of music and actually bring it into poetry. So to take a model from it. So PJ Harvey was very influential on my heresies. I loved her when I was 18. She was a lifesaver then. Surprised she was a lifesaver again at 45. And I went back to bringing the sort of the punk aesthetic that had been very good for me when I was young, into my poetry, allowing myself to misbehave, not worrying if that was normal, not worrying, allowing my definition of beauty to expand. I think we internalize a lot of things and really just enjoying it. Learning from my peers, is really like seeing friends do things on the page, seeing strangers and dead people do things on the page that I'm just like, that was a high wire act. That was incredible. Not being afraid anymore of high wire acts on the page, not being afraid of being difficult, right? Not being afraid of being elliptical, not being afraid of seeming unavailable. Like there's this one thing that didn't make my heresies. It was called Emotionally Unavailable Sonnet, because my partner he would say sometimes, "You're so emotionally unavailable sometimes, Alina." And I was like, that's so funny because, I feel emotionally very available, in fact, over available to people. And people don't know how you process that and how you deal with that. But it's just also the joy of writing and the joy of hearing other people talk, and the way the world expands when you make space for all of the possibilities, and the way little boxes burn up, and the pleasure of burning up those little boxes on the page, which is just huge to me.
Am I saying the final word?
You get it. It's yours, Stine. No pressure. 70%.
70%. I mean, one thing I've been doing is I have a lot of, I guess, friends with similar backgrounds who are Asian American, oftentimes socialized as women. And for me, understanding my neurodivergence or just how my mind works has been pretty life-changing for not just for my day-to-day life, but also for my art. And so for a lot of my friends, I've also kind of, if they've had an inkling, I've encouraged them to kind of go to get a diagnosis, or I've encouraged them to understand more about their brain, and that you gain a lot from that self-knowledge.
Yeah. I think, kind of started with poetry gives us community and ended with poetry gives us community. That feels like super key. 100%, Stine. That was so good. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being poets. These guys are going to be signing in the main lobby all of their brilliant books. Go find them, buy their books, follow them, listen to them more. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing us. Thank you for seeing yourself. I look forward to saying hi to you, and have a great conference.